What's going on, guys? My name is Richard and welcome back to the stock market outlook video. As always, we'll talk through my trades from this past week as well as my current holdings. Then we'll discuss the action of the market indexes, the leading stocks in the market, the potential true market leaders, and we'll also cover how my previous watchlist performed over this past week. And we'll also discuss a few different sentiment indicators, such as my surveys that I post on Twitter, the NAAIM exposure index, the bulls versus bears poll, the put call ratio, and we'll wrap up the video by talking about the IBD Big Picture article and also the GMI signal from wishingwellthball.com. And then at the end of the video, we'll put all those different information sources together and I'll give my take on what I view the current trend of the market to be. So if you enjoy my analysis, please go ahead and leave a like down below and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And let's dive into my trades from this past week. So overall last week, I did kind of feel out of step with the market. And overall, I was knocked out of most of my positions due to raised stops. And currently, I only have a full position in Livongo and also a half position in Zoom. So diving in, let's start with Zoom Info, which was a promising stock last week. It was showing nice RS, and I entered on the green dot setup on this day. I went to a full position here and added as it broke out of this inside day consolidation on this day right here. And it was acting really well until this day where we had a gap down and a pretty bearish day finishing below the lows of the two previous days. And you can see it was on high volume, although not higher than the breakout day. And overall, I was stopped out of most of my position on this day and sold my last bit as it broke the 21 EMA in the morning on this day right here. But overall, it is still hanging in at this bottom of the short shelf here. And I will be looking for a re-entry on this because I think it's a very promising stock, great fundamentals. And overall, this is a nice bullish upside reversal on Friday. So overall, acting reasonably well. And it successfully shook me out on this day and this day right here. So I'll be keeping an eye on this. If we go to a weekly chart, let's see how that looks. You can see there's actually almost 4 weeks tight. So this is really consolidating nicely and showing a lot of support during a kind of shaky pullback in the overall market indexes. So that is Zoom Info. And next up, we've got Livongo, which I'm still holding from my start position right here off the 50-day moving average. And you've got earnings coming in. So I'll be keeping an eye on that and potentially selling half before that happens, depending on how it acts. So that is Livongo. And next up, we've got CrowdStrike, which had a bunch of kind of warning signs. You've got some downside reversals right at all-time highs on the 14th and also on this day right here, the 19th. And these were both expectation breakers because you had a nice breakout right near all-time highs on this day, and then it tries to move up but can't, suggesting that there's a lot of sellers up here. And then this day, you can see it tries to bounce here on this day and this day, but then it can't continue. And this kind of starts the downtrend to the 50-day moving average. So that was CrowdStrike. And next up, we've got SQ, which just had an orderly pullback to the 21 EMA. But I did get out because it broke the low of this day. That kind of broke my expectation. I wanted it to move up from this shelf right here. But I am looking for another entry into the stock. You can see on this Friday, it had a lower Bollinger Band bounce, which is actually tightening up right here, the Bollinger Bands. And you've also got an upside reversal signal as well. So acting pretty strong SQ. And like I said, I'll be looking for a re-entry on a green dot, teal dot, or similar setup. Next up, we've got Beyond Meat. And this also shook me out last week. I actually added on this day back to a full position after taking it off up in here. But I did get stopped out of those ads and also a little bit more on this day right here because it broke the low of this day right here, the 13th. And then it shook me out of the rest of my position on this day, although it is finding supportive action at about the 168 level, which kind of lines up with the top of this consolidation right here. So look for a nice bounce early next week. I'll be looking to get back in to this stock. Next up, we've got NEO, which also shook me out due to it broke the low of the 20th and overall still acting really nicely. It's very tight. And this has probably been my top performing stock over the past few weeks. And I'll definitely be looking to get back in on a green dot or a breakout into all-time highs above 29.40. Moving on, we've got Tesla, which shook me out on this day right here as it broke the 10 EMA, or actually the 10-day here. And you can see that it was just pulling back to the 50-day moving average before its earnings report. And I didn't want to hold through earnings, so I ended up just selling my position on this day right here. So lastly, we've got Zoom, and this was an overweight position at this point because I added as it broke out of the short-term shelf right here. And I sold about 30% on this day to bring it back to a normal position, and then half of that position on this day right here. And as I said, I currently have a half position in the stock. I'll be looking to add back in if it forms a green dot and confirms a bounce off the 21 EMA area. And overall, this day right here was a negative sign because it had a reversal intraday. And then this day right here was also a character change as it broke the 10-day moving average, which you can see that during this run-up is really respected. So that is a summary of my trades from this past week. And overall, as I said, I feel a little bit out of touch from the market action. So if I go back into some of these stocks, I'll probably be going in at less than a full position initially. And then as the market kind of confirms my process and shows that things are working, I'll add to that exposure. But with that said, let's move on to the analysis of the market indexes. Let's start with the QQQ on a daily time frame. So overall on this day, you can see we were down 1.63% with a daily closing range right near the low of the trading day, but you did find support at the 21 EMA, which is one positive. And then we had two straight kind of consolidation days on Tuesday and Wednesday where nothing much happened, but overall we were staying above the 21 EMA and 50 SMA, which is a positive. And then on Thursday, we had a nice kind of shakeout and upside reversal off the 50 SMA, which is very positive. And then once again on Friday, we had a move down, but then a positive close right above the 21 EMA and staying above the 50 SMA. So overall, after this Monday, it was a very good week, and we're staying above this level right here for the time being. But if we lose these key moving averages, I would take that as a negative sign. And ideally next week, we would move up from this inside day and break above the 10-day moving average once again and resume the uptrend. So from this last bar, the expectation is we go sideways or higher. And if we go to a weekly chart, let's take a look at the stage analysis. So overall, we're above an increasing 10-week and also 30-week SMA. So we are in a stage 2 uptrend. And overall, we are down 1.31% on the week with a weekly closing range of 36.8%. So moving on to the SPY, the S&P 500 ETF, you can see overall we were down 0.43% with a weekly closing range of 59.1% and a daily closing range on Friday of 92.7% for a strong close to the week. And overall, we are also above an increasing 10-week and 30-week SMA, so we are in a stage 2 at this moment. Next up, we've got the IWM, the Russell 2000 ETF, and overall we are up 0.44% on the week with a nice weekly closing range of 80.2% and a daily closing range on Friday of 87.5%. And overall, we are above an increasing 10-week and 30-week SMA, so we are once again in a stage 2 uptrend. Next up, we've got the DIA, the Dow Jones ETF, and overall we had a down week of 0.92% with a weekly closing range of 45% and a daily closing range on Friday of 60.4%. And overall, we are above a rising 10-week and 30-week SMA, so we are in a stage 2 uptrend, and the expectation from this bar is we go sideways or higher. And quickly going back to the QQQ, the expectation is we go sideways or higher, and from the SPY as well, sideways or higher, and also the IWM, definitely sideways or higher. So next up, we've got GLD, the gold ETF, and overall we had a consolidation week. You can see it's been pretty tight the past few weeks, and overall we are up 0.19% with a weekly closing range of 25.6%, and we are below the 10-week, which is decreasing, but we are above a rising 30-week, so we are in a stage 1 at this moment. And next up, we've got the XLF, the financials, and overall we are up 1.04% with a weekly closing range of 82.1%, a daily closing range on Friday of 57.1%, and the expectation from this bar is we go sideways or higher. And we are above a flat 10-week and a rising 30-week, so we are in a stage 1 at this moment. And lastly, we've got the VIX, the volatility index, and overall you can see we moved up, but then overall on the week we were only up 0.51%. And we had a weekly closing range of 14.5% and a daily closing range on Friday of 20.6%. So the expectation is we go sideways or down. So that is a brief run through of the major ETFs. And lastly, actually I forgot, FFTY, the Innovator IBD50 ETF, you can see we are down 2.67%. So this kind of reflects the weakness in some of the growth leaders. And overall, we had a weekly closing range of only 24.1%, but a daily closing range on Friday of 100%. And from this bar, the expectation is we go sideways or lower, although we are in a stage 2 at this time. So that is the summary of the major indexes. Now let's move on to the action of the potential true market leaders. And overall, I have added a few stocks to this list, such as Snap and NLS, but if there's any others that you think I should add, just let me know down below in the comment section. So going through the charts, you can see that Snap had a very strong week. And if we go to a daily chart, you can see that this is an earnings gap up on huge volume and you had excellent closing ranges on Thursday and Friday. So the expectation is we go higher here. And if we get a pullback, I'll definitely be looking to take up a position into this stock. Next up, we've got NLS, which overall was still increasing nicely above all the key moving averages and had a nice upside reversal on Friday. Pins as well moved with Snap and overall had a gap up on that same day and also had another few strong days on Thursday and Friday and is above all the key moving averages and is looking very, very strong right at all-time highs. Twilio as well had some nice action on Friday despite pulling back through the majority of last week, but overall it's finding support at the 21 EMA, which also lines up with these prior levels right here. AMD, you can see, was pulling back throughout most of the week, but did have some nice action on Thursday and especially on Friday on higher volume, but still below the 10-day, the 21 EMA, and 50 SMA. So it would be a nice sign if it breaks through that on above average volume. Next up, we've got DDOG, which was also pulling back, as with a lot of these major growth leaders, but showed some nice action on Friday. You can see it had a whole bunch of indicators, a lower Bollinger Band bounce, a teal dot, an upside reversal, and also an undercut of the lows of this consolidation. Next up, we've got apps, which also pulled back last week and broke through the 10-day and 21 EMA, but overall found support at the previous green line. So next up, we've got TDD, and overall this was pretty much flat and is holding above that 21 EMA. You can see the Bollinger Bands are constricting right here, so it could pop one way or the other. Moving on, we've got Shop, which decreased, but then had a nice move on Friday off the 50 SMA. HDNP also found support there last week, and you want to see a move through all the key moving averages on above average volume. Then we've got NVIDIA, which also should support at the 21 EMA, and you can see the Bollinger Bands are constricting as well during this handle and quick pullback. Then we had Peloton, which actually decreased last week, but overall found support at the 21 EMA. Etsy as well had a pullback here, but is finding support and retook the 21 EMA on this past Friday. SEDG, along with overall the Solar Group, pulled back last week, but once again is finding support near the 21 EMA. SE as well pulled back to the 21 EMA, but you can see it actually undercut the pivot breakout, which was at about 165. Roku, you can see, is consolidating nicely and holding nicely above that 21 EMA. TDOC is at the 50 SMA. CrowdStrike we already discussed. SQ we already discussed. Net is pulling back beautifully and had a teal dot on this past Friday. And look at how the volume is decreasing during this pullback, and it was really strong during the breakout. So I'll definitely be looking to take up a position in the stock. And it also had a nice inside day on Friday, so you could buy it off the pivot off this high, which is 56.64. EMPH as well, along with SEDG, pulled back last week, but had a nice upside reversal bar on Thursday and is consolidating that move right here above the 21 EMA. Fiverr is finding support at the 21 EMA. Beyond Meat, as we already discussed, is below the 21 EMA, but is right at this kind of key level of 167. DKNG pulled back and undercut the 50 SMA, but so far it's finding supportive action at about 42.74. Tesla is pretty coiled and right at the 50 SMA with a nice reversal bar on Friday. XP pulled back pretty sharply to the 50 SMA. I actually forgot to discuss this in my kind of trade recap. I sold a little bit, about half my shares on this day right here, and then as it undercut this 53.95 level, which is a consolidation period back on these days right here, I sold the rest. So I protected myself pretty well, and I'll be looking to watch this stock as it shapes up and potentially bounces from this point. And finally, we've got Zoom, which I already discussed, which is acting well above the 21 EMA. So that is a run through of the stocks that I deem true market leaders, and let me know your thoughts down below as well. So moving on to my weekly watch list, you can see that overall, if we sort by the weekly change, the best performers were CalX, CRSR, and also pins. And sorting by my focus list, you can see that overall we were about 50-50 red to green, and overall we didn't have any kind of standouts this week. But going through CLH, you can see it's still coiling here and had a negative downside reversal on this day right here, but it is finding support at the 50 SMA. Reggie is moving up nicely. You can see it bounced off the 21 EMA here. You had a nice breakout on this Thursday, but then had a reversal on Friday. GDRX, another recent IPO, you can see broke the downward trend line right here and had a teal dot on Wednesday, and so far is acting pretty well. ZI we've already discussed. Sale is nicely in this consolidation here. If we go to a weekly chart, I believe it's about 4 weeks tight at this moment. So this is definitely one to have on your watch list. And overall, it's acting very well, finding support at the 21 EMA. AMD, we already discussed. NVIDIA, we already discussed. Coop had a nice bounce off the 50 SMA. Shop, we already discussed. W, you can see, really broke down and is below all those key moving averages, which are actually slanting down at this point. So I don't think this is one to touch. Potentially it's forming a double bottom here, along with this low right here. And finally, we've got Run, which sliced through the 50 SMA, but so far is hanging in there at about 57. So that is the performance of my watch list. Make sure you guys tune in later today for my next one. So moving on to sentiment, you can see that we did have a slight increase this week to 50.4% bullishness as opposed to 48.8% last week. So not a major increase here. And moving on to the name exposure index, you can see we actually had a decrease this week, which is bullish. And in terms of bulls versus bears, you can see we're back up to very bullish, which is a negative sign. And looking at the put call ratio, you can see it's still just kind of going sideways here, although you had a slight increase last week with the pullback in the overall markets. And moving on to the IBD big picture article, you can see that the headline is Small Caps Lead Stock Market Gains, Late Buying Lifts NASDAQ, S&P 500. And overall, they discuss a strong close to the day and the week. And overall, they talk about some distribution days here, how we only have one on the NASDAQ. And although we do have 3 on the S&P 500, one of those was only a stalling session, and one of the other ones was only a decline of 0.2%, so it's not too serious. And overall, they discuss how the cup and handle formations for NVIDIA, Microsoft, Adobe, Shopify are encouraging signs for the overall market. And they discuss some market movers. You've got Unity here, Frog, another recent IPO, the overall semiconductor ETF, SMH, and also the move in AMD late last week. And overall, their view is that we are still in a confirmed uptrend with 3 distribution days on the S&P 500 and 1 on the NASDAQ. So lastly, taking a look at the GMI signal, you can see we are still green since October 6th, and we have a GMI score of 4 out of 6 on Friday. So overall, taking everything into account, we had some pullbacks late last week, but overall, all the growth leaders are pretty much showing supportive action near their 21 EMAs. So my current view is we are still in a confirmed uptrend, and I'll be looking to buy those bounces off those key moving averages. So that's pretty much it for the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead and leave a like down below. It really does help me out and my channel. And of course, subscribe if you're new and looking forward to more videos just like this one every single week. So take care, everybody, and I'll see you guys in future videos.